Hi everyone, it's good to be back again. It's taken a couple of weeks, but I have finally finished reading the book I've been reading of late. And the reason why it's taken me some time, it's kind of been a mixture of things. It's been like some things to do with work and life and all that lot, but also the book itself. But I'll explain out in a minute exactly what I mean. But the book I've been reading is Hex by Thomas Olde Heuvelt. I hope I said that correctly. He's a Dutch writer. I don't know exactly how to pronounce his name, but yeah, Thomas. This is a book that I picked up earlier this year at Waterstones because I thought, what an intriguing story it sounded like. A really intriguing idea. And it's one that I just picked up the book, and it was one trip in Waterstones, I remember, and I picked it up when it kind of like was on the first table when I got through the door, and I picked it up and I read it, oh, that's quite interesting, and then I went off, and then I came back, and then I went off, and I came back, and I went upstairs, and I came back, and I was like, oh, for crying out loud, if you've come back to this table like 4 times to be able to look at this book again, I think that means that you're going to have to buy it. So I bought it, and it got picked from the jar. And it's a a horror book, unlike a horror book that I've really read before, because it's so interesting. It's such an interesting idea. I liked the construction of it. I liked it, but there were some parts that were just really odd and a bit off-putting for me. That doesn't mean that he's off-putting for everyone, of course. Everyone has their own opinion, just as this video is my opinion. But yeah, there were some bits that didn't quite work for me, and I think that's why it took me 2 weeks to read, because I found some parts of it, like the first 100 or so pages of this book, yes, they were intriguing, but I found them a bit tough to get through. I found them a bit dry. But then from like page 150 maybe to the end, which is like 380, I was fine with it. It was just that initial wedge of information that you're getting that I found it a bit tough. Now, Hex, in case you haven't come across it, is about a town in America, right at New York, just off the ways off from New York City, and it's called Black Spring, and it has a uniqueness in that it has a curse on it by a witch who, from the 17th century, and she basically roams about the place. She pops up everywhere. She has a certain schedule. She appears in certain places and do certain things and all this lot. But mainly, she just walks around, or she just stands there in this spot for a period of time. And she is a witch who was she was deemed to be a witch, let's say, in the 1600s, mid 1600s, and she was put to death. She was hung for it, and her mouth and eyes were sewed up, and over time she's had these chains wrapped around her to keep her from doing anything, basically. And she roams about just doing her thing, and it's believed that if she opens her eyes and mouth, she speaks, then a terrible event will unfold, but they don't know what that event is. It's been 300 years, and of them watching her. There's so many hours of footage of her just roaming about. In this area, in this village, they've completely cut themselves off. They don't want anybody taking notice of this curse. Nobody's allowed in the area. If somebody wants to move to the area, like something like a job or whatever, they are persuaded as much as possible not to move there, because as soon as they move there, become a resident, they get put under this curse. You may ask, okay, why don't they just leave? Well, if they leave, they then become suicidal, and within like a week and a half, 2 weeks, you're dead. You kill yourself. So you have to stay there to be able to be safe. All of the residents have iPhones and such, which they use to download the Hex app, sorry, not app, which tells them exactly where the witch, Catherine is her name, where she is at any point in the day, any moment of the day. But the teens are very much wanting to film her, wanting to explore things about her. But when the boundaries are crossed of, oh, we're just being cocky and being jokey, to something very serious and sinister, it then brings about a whole new chain of events which lead on throughout the book. Now, if I tell any more about the plot than that, I'm going to start delving into specific events, and I don't want to do that in case you guys haven't read this and you want to read this. So yeah, there's a big array of characters within this village. There's about 3,000 people in total who live there, but they are, it's really strange because they are cut off, but then at the same time they're very close to like New York and the Hudson River and stuff. So it's, you always have a feeling like, oh, they're only down the road from a bunch of people. At least I felt that when I was reading it. The things that kind of annoyed me, well, I don't know if annoy is the right word, but didn't quite work for me, were things like the actual location itself. Now, Thomas, who wrote this, wrote this book, he originally wrote it because he's a Dutchman. He originally wrote it as set in a Dutch village. So when the English translation happened, because he speaks several languages, and it says in the acknowledgements, it was translated by somebody else and he approved it and edited it with them, but he didn't do the full translation. But when the English translation came around, it was decided to move the location from this little Dutch village to New York. And I wonder if that, by doing that, that kind of led to a bit of a disconnection, or at least it did for me. I still thoroughly enjoyed it, don't get me wrong, but I kind of felt like when you're in Black Spring, I had the understanding from what people were saying, what they were doing, and that this was a place where you felt quite claustrophobic even outside, because you were completely shut off. Everything was monitored, all of your phone calls, any internet activity, everything possible. You were constantly being watched, as it were, because the cameras are focusing on Catherine, the witch. But then, I felt like I should be feeling really cautious and claustrophobic and that, and I didn't, only until like near the end of the book, when things really get rammed up because of a certain event happens. I'm not going to say what it is, but a certain event happens. Only then did I feel kind of the tension and the build and the build and the build, and and you're waiting for this bang to happen at the end. There is a bang, as it were. It wasn't the bang that I was expecting, and I was kind of disappointed by that ending, only for the various people who live there. There is one person who has a different fate from everyone else. But the reason why I say that is because, right, in the acknowledgements, Thomas has said that the final third of the book, when they were translated to English, he decided to rewrite it. So the Dutch version of the book is different, has a completely different ending than the English version. Which, okay, that's fine if he chose to do that, because he said he wanted to go a bit darker and do some things that he wasn't able to do with the original book. Which is, fine, fair play if you want to do that. But what I got versus what I thought was going to happen were very different. And I felt like this tension build up, and then the result was a bit of a kick in the teeth. It's not a bad ending, but I kind of felt like that was the choice he went with. I'm not really okay with that. It was a okay, I'll say it this way. I kind of felt like for everyone who lived in Black Spring, apart from this one person who has as I said, he has a different kind of ending chapter, as it were. Felt like a bit of a cop out because so build. Right, let's just deal with that out of the way, and then we'll come back to for the focus for this one person. It's just it didn't quite work for me. For that one person, phew, that was a way to end the book. I'll say that I was not expecting. So it kind of felt like the surprise element of what happened to that character was what I wanted to happen to everybody else. I wanted to have that shocker kind of ending for everybody else in Black Spring, and I didn't get that. He's not a bad writer at all. The first 150 pages or so, as I said, were quite slow, but then you've got a lot of build up, you've got a lot of information and everything. But the characters are really interesting. I absolutely love Tyler and his brother Matt, especially, and their parents Stephen and Jocelyn. They're like a key family unit of this story. But you've also got other characters like Robert Grimm, who works at Hex and everything, and so many other, like Griselda, the woman who runs the butchers. There's such a lot going on in this story, and it does get darker and darker as it goes on. But I really want to, give praise to him for having Catherine being the witch character who we see, going around and everything, and using her as a form of connection to the past, but also a form of misunderstanding, which is because whenever you have like witches and such in like films or books or theatre or whatever, they're very much cackling, over cauldrons, bubble, bubble, toil and trouble, kind of Shakespeare and everything. Or they're kind of like in films like, Disney film like Hocus Pocus, they're very comical characters and everything. And Catherine isn't that. She is a woman who is really quite complex. She's very emotional. She feels things that you wouldn't anticipate that she would. She's been through so much. I really felt for Catherine throughout the course of the book, and the way that she was treated in life, how she is treated after her death, what she actually means, what she symbolises, what the connection is. I found her so intriguing. So I really did like various elements of this, especially the depiction of Catherine, but the ending was a bit about apart from that one character who I can kind of see why they got the ending that they got. But for everyone else, it felt like a bit of a cop out. So overall, I think I might try and have a read again. I'm not that fussed about reading it again, but I suppose I might give it another turn, see how I feel after knowing the connections, the symbolisms of things that I didn't get. It was only after I finished reading I was like, oh my gosh, that totally made sense because of that and that. I think knowing the answer of something, knowing the answer to a riddle and rereading it, re-going over that riddle, you find things, you spot things that you didn't see before, and I think I'd need to do that with Hex. Would I read any more of his books? Yeah, I might give it a go. It was such an intriguing concept and so interesting one. Why hadn't it been thought of before? Kind of thing. But yeah, the way that he writes, he is a good writer. I would recommend this work, but be wary of some elements that don't really work. And as I said, I found it a bit weird with this is a place that's disconnected, it's out of the way, yet we're told it's right by New York, which is very busy, so it didn't really, the setting didn't work for me personally. That doesn't mean it doesn't work for everyone else, but that's how I feel about it. But yeah, so that's what I thought of Hex by Thomas Olde Heuvelt. I hope again that I'm saying his name correctly, because I don't know how exactly to pronounce his name. But yes, by Thomas. So that's what I thought of Hex. Have you guys read this book? I'd love to know what you think. You can leave me a comment in the comments box below, or you can give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Entirely up to you. I'll let you to decide. And I'll be back shortly to announce what book I'm going to be reading next. I'm actually filming this on the Sunday, but I won't be able to upload until tomorrow morning. So you'll be seeing this from Monday, but I'm actually shooting this on Sunday. But yeah, I will be back soon announcing what the next book will be, which will be a non-fiction book. Alright then guys, bye!